background of this phenomena, I'm going to just speak very simple about this phenomena, which is the offender trying to hide the source of the fund, which is usually comes from the criminal activities. There are a lot of definitions from the scholars and some of them from the international organization. One of them is money earned through drug trafficking and other crime is invested by concealing its source and origin to acquire and transfer assets to regularize such a legal proceed. Well, this is, the money laundering usually go through 3 stages: placement, layering, and integration. These stages are the most serious transactions and complex transactions, which is run through the financial system. But the most serious stage is the placement. The placement is usually start with the cash transaction deposits to the financial institutions. So many scholars, they stated once we stop the placement, we will control the money laundering in the world. As per the literature, especially in Italy, the money laundering reached up to 6% of their GDP, which is a high volume of money laundered every year. And one of our researcher stated that the money laundering reached up to 6% of the global GDP, which is around 2 to 3 trillion a year. So we are front of a serious disease affecting the financial system around the globe. The rationale of this paper to examine the effectiveness of anti-money laundering measures undertaken by banks in Bahrain. The validity of such measures is established when the following confirmed to FATF recommendation. The FATF recommendation is interbody or international body organization established in '89 and issued 49 recommendations. Those recommendations to be complied by the governments in the worldwide. And the front line of these, or the implementer of those recommendations is the financial system in a country. Here we're gonna focus on some tools used by the FATF recommendations to implement and do the useful action to stop the laundering through the financial system. POSA in 2011 state that the mitigation of money laundering demands eradication of a placement stage. So as I said before, the placement is the most serious stage, and we will go through the tools which is used by the financial institutions based on the FATF recommendation. First of all, we're going to start with the customer due diligence. The customer due diligence usually the financial institutions do the vetting or do the profiling for their customers, to know their customers, who are they, and if they are matched to their transactions. Enhanced due diligence, it is more rely on the transparency action, and action should be used by the financial institutions to control the money laundering. Risk-based due diligence, it is by A 2012, cites that FATF to justify the importance of RBDD to combat money laundering. Its adoption is required to detect and categorize the customers into two distinct classes, such as high and low risk customers. So all of these strands practically by the suspicious transaction report, which is usually done by the money laundering report officers in the financial institution. So the failure to combat the money laundering is based on the exchange of information between the financial institutions and the regulator and in the world. So I will give you just quick explain about the how we could link it to the tools as it is shown. How to stop these the tool which is KYC, know your customer, or customer transaction report, or suspicious transaction report, or suspicious activity report, through the customer due diligence, risk-based due diligence. Well, if we want to do all of these, let's say for what? To mitigate the money laundering. So mitigation means there is tracking, investigation, seize, persecute, convict, or confiscate of the money. So why these fail to combat the money laundering in the world? This is the main gap, as I believe, which is the contradictions between the initiatives themselves. There are a lot of initiatives in the world. There are a lot of conventions, regulations. So some of them talking about the human rights, privacy, secrecy, politically exposed person, and the legal protection for the, let's say, PEPs, or political exposed person. Which they are like a source of the transparency, because the failure is the government failed to improve the transparency in the transaction themselves. So the opaqueness based on the contradictions between the initiatives and the conventions improve the non-transparency in the transactions, which is, again, as I believe, once we improve the transparency in the transactions, we will control the money up to a certain level. So the review defines the relevance of implementation of AML measures by banks. Their adoption is required to monitor, regulate, and prevent money laundering, and also observe that the effective AML measures make it possible to guide banks to take the lead to dismantle the money laundering process or the money laundering stage. This is definitely the outcome of the customer due diligence and the enhanced due diligence. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali. Do you guys have any questions?
Could you just repeat the question, please?
Well, your topic is the effectiveness of money laundering measures in banks in Bahrain.
Yes.
So, if the act is effective, there will be no money laundering. Yeah.
Yes.
And the question is, so money laundering means illicit, or they are trying to make, say, illicit money into the legal money, or illegal to legal.
Right.
So they want to hide, then how you will uncover that?
To
Uncover, you have to find out
okay.
whether there is some illicit money they are trying to make it legal or not. So then how you will get those type of information by which you can tell that whether the act is effective?
You mean
or
there
not.
is like an effective system on place or not?
Yeah.
This is what you are asking, right?
Yeah.
Well, definitely there are two things. I mean, first of all, there are always evaluation for the system, which is implemented on the ground. But through the scholars, they have found so many loopholes used by the offenders to launder the money. So, did I answer your question?
No, I mean, in some cases, even the bank, I mean, so they cooperate to the offender. That happened in the UK. Yeah, for example, Barclays. Bank.
Insiders, let's say, we call them, or...
It's not an insider. You are looking about the how the effectiveness of anti-money laundering measures of banks in Bahrain.
Yes,
So you are looking the effectiveness.
Yes.
How effective?
yes,
If there are no cases of the money laundering, maybe you could say law is effective. So are there any reported cases? And the important thing, you have to find out the cases, i.e. how many cases you have, how much money they are trying to
hide
yeah.
or to launder.
Yeah, so in that case, so the important thing, it is very, very difficult to find because you need some information. I mean, so to tell that whether the law is effective or not. And it will be more difficult because in some cases, banks themselves cooperate with the offender. So my question is,
Yeah,
how you will get data?
Okay. So data, as I proposed earlier, this year, the data will be collected from the, secondary data will be collected from the central bank. And I will conduct interview by the MLROs in the financial systems. But I know what you are talking about. You are talking about, are these data correct or not? To measure, you mean the effectiveness? Or I misunderstand what you... Yes.
Because if the country do not enact the Money Laundering Act, they will be blacklisted. Yeah,
Okay.
They will be blacklisted.
Let's say by FATF, yes.
So they must, have some laws or the regulation.
Yes.
So that is the minimum. But
Okay.
some countries, they have some additional measures.
Okay.
So, but the question, because going back to the title of your
The
own,
effectiveness.
effectiveness.
Okay.
So because the area
Okay.
of your research, I think it might be difficult to get data. Either you can consider more cases reported, the law is not effective. If no cases reported, law is effective.
Yeah.
So this is what you
So you're concerned about the data itself,
yes.
if they are like a classified data or it is published data. Anyhow, but most of the data which I propose, earlier this year, when I discussed this matter even through my poster, it is published data and the interview which should be conducted. But we have to keep in our mind this is not a phenomena in Bahrain. This is a phenomena around the globe. There are lots of data available, especially from the FATF bodies, let's say, because regional bodies of the FATF organization, they are running usually a mutual evaluation for each country in the world every 5 years. And these data are published and can be used in the research itself.
Dr. Kamal, do you have a question?
I have one comment and one question. The comment is that, as you said, that these issues are not sustained, not confined to the Middle East region or Bahrain. It's global. So perhaps in your literature review, you need to give some examples. What issues have been reported, cases have been reported in the literature, and what measures have been taken to overcome those issues. And second thing is that you need to clarify on your research problem. So if you can just elaborate that again. It's not clear. You said you have 3 layers. So if you can elaborate that, what the issues, the actual research problem is.
Sure. Sure. Well, from the literature, so many scholars have stated, and they are arguing about the volume of the money every year is rising. With all initiatives, with all conventions, with all standards issued by the special, agencies, still the money of the lender money is rising every year. This is the main issue to have found in the literature itself.
Dr. Mar?
Very close. Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. I have a question about this access to data. Have there been any money laundering cases reported in Bahrain? And if yes, how many?
Well, there are a lot of money laundering cases happened in Bahrain during the 10 years. Now around 6 cases have been convicted. And there are a lot front of the prosecutor office.
Okay, thank you, Ali. Thank you very much. I would like to welcome Isam Al-Alawi.
She has some questions.
Oh, you have another question? Sure. But 1 minute only because we are...
Thank you very much for your presentation. You said you talk about the effectiveness of the system, of the current system, right, in the banks. So the question is, what will be your proposal for improving this system? So are you going to do something with technical? It's related to the system itself, or? So what would be your contribution in this? And are you sure that when you propose this system, they will allow you to, or the banks, they are going to use it?
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I'm using an existing model, and I'm trying to develop this model. And this is what will be my contribution to the knowledge. Well, I have added to this model, let's say, the dismantle dots. And I will use different variables. So inshallah, I'm still developing this.
Dr. Kamal, do you have a suggestion?
You said that there have been some cases reported in Bahrain. So it means that the FATF has not been followed properly, right?
The FATF
FATF recommendations have not been followed properly.
In Bahrain, you mean?
Yeah.
It is not necessary, doctor. It is not necessary. I mean, a lot of cases that happen in everywhere, even in the UK. Let's say even the United States. It is the hub of the money laundering in the world. Tax havens in everywhere. So it doesn't mean they are not comply with the FATF recommendation. If we go away from the academic point of view, each country in the world showing that we are complying with the FATF recommendation, with initiative agreements, MOUs, whatever, just name them. But in fact, there is an opaqueness in their system hiding the information from the the concerned departments, which, like a financial intelligence unit or the central bank in a country. So it is not necessary, doctor.
The measures are not effective then. The can you go to the title? The anti-money laundering measures are not effective then.
In the world,
Regardless.
100% no.
So then you perhaps need to think about changing the title or changing your research, perhaps. Think about this.
You mean changing the title?
If the recommendations are there, if the rules and regulations are there in terms of money laundering, and they are not being followed, and there are claims that these measures are effective, but you still have cases, so something is wrong somewhere, right?
Yeah, but I mean, let's say the main gap I have found, again, I'm going to say it, the contradictions between initiatives. This is the main loopholes exploited by the offenders in the global system.
In that case, you need to think about what will be your end contribution. At the moment, you say the effectiveness of
But this is the title of the paper, doctor.
That's fine, I agree. But then if they are not effective, then the end result, you need to think about what will be the end result. It's very obvious, I think so. Okay?
Inshallah,
Thank you.
doctor. Inshallah.
Thank you, Ali. Isam? The title of Isam Al-Alawi's presentation is Perceived Gender Discrimination Within Labor Markets, Its Antecedents and Consequences. Welcome, Isam. You have 15 minutes for the presentation and 5 minutes for questions.
Good morning, everyone. I think this is for the second time I've been told to join, and then for some reasons I'm back. So anyway, I have only 15 minutes to talk about workplace perceived gender discrimination, its antecedents and consequences. Let me just enlarge this. Right. This is meant to be only for literature review findings. A paper was developed earlier, and this is the presentation of this paper. Through the contents here, through the presentation, I'll be talking about the aim, objectives, introduction, then methodology, literature review, discussions, and conclusion. It is meant to be methodology before literature review because this is all about literature review. So I meant to keep this literature review, methodology before literature review. The aim is to investigate the relationship between perceived gender discrimination, workplace perceived gender discrimination, and its antecedents and consequences. So it's basically the relationship between We have at one side workplace gender discrimination, perceived gender discrimination, and the other side I have antecedents and consequences. Right. I have a few objectives to mention here. Of course, I want to critically examine the notion of workplace perceived gender discrimination. Then I have to define the theories, in general, the theories for gender discrimination or workplace gender discrimination. Then I'll be talking about some antecedents to identify them, and then the relationship of these antecedents and the effect of these antecedents on gender discrimination. And then I have some to tell more about the consequences of gender discrimination and at different levels. Right. If you look at this, we are proud to say that the representation of women or female at workplace reaching almost 50%, which is quite good. But the thing is, women are seen everywhere in different jobs and different occupations, but it seems that they are not able to go to climb the ladder and go for the top management positions, as well as they are not getting paid similarly to the men. So they are basically, their salaries are still lower than their male counterparts. Of course, there are some efforts being taken all over the world just to make sure that there's equality, women equalities or gender equality at workplace, but still we can tell that there are different forms of workplace discrimination taking place in different places. Right. Going through the methodology of my literature review findings, of course I use, the main reason behind all this is just to make contrasting and comparing among different scholars. Simple way was just to go more into systematic review and focus on the questions that I have in the beginning, which are the objectives. And then through the Google Scholar, I tried to find, as you know, this is Google Scholar, you can get hundreds of different topics and different journals and articles. But I had to be very specific this time, and I had to go through the keynotes or keywords that I used myself in the beginning, which are the antecedents, consequences of gender discrimination, and the workplace gender discrimination as well. Of course, some of those Google Scholar journals cannot be opened unless I have some good access for those database. And of course, I got them through the electronic Brunel library, which I had like a chance to go for different topics, different database, EBSCO, Adjuster, and so on. And again, mainly I look into all those workplace gender discrimination articles, but sometimes I did follow even those which are non-gender discrimination articles, but other than gender discrimination articles, which is related to workplace discrimination. That's because I need to know what are those antecedents and consequences relevant to different type of discrimination, workplace discrimination. Of course, this is the critics and discussions being made. It's all about the scholars themselves, but all what I did basically manage all this discussion and get the different critics and argument between different scholars and put them in the right manner. Usually we go for the abstracts, and if we find it relevant, we continue with that, but it seems that even with some abstracts I found them very interesting in the beginning, but at the end, when I go through the document itself or the article, I found them somehow irrelevant. And of course, gender discrimination, if you look at it, it's like a very wide topic, and I have to be very specific in my objectives and my questions. One of those things that we discussed in the beginning about the literature review is about the definitions. Before I end up with workplace perceived gender discrimination, I went through the discrimination definition, then I go to the gender discrimination, perceived gender discrimination, and so on until I get the proper definition of workplace or workplace perceived gender discrimination. I have it here. This is one example that I show here, which means involvement of subjective decisions that are based on individuals' personal involvement and experience and cause gender inequalities in the workplace. This is only one definition that I selected among from my literature review. When I go to the theories of gender discrimination, again, I found something really interesting here, that over 15 years, there was like about 500 plus articles written all about employment discrimination or workplace discrimination. at only psychoinfo alone itself. And it says, again, Goldman and his colleagues still saying that still there's a need for more to investigate and more to find, to come up with different theories. So still there is a need of more theories about gender discrimination, basically about workplace discrimination, which is gender is part of it. Looking to the theories that are available, we have them based on different aspects. One of them is like based on the employers, and based on clients, and based on co-workers. This is one way of finding the gender discrimination theories. So the preference of those, like preference of employers, the preference of clients and co-workers, this is one way of finding the gender discrimination. Another way of finding the categorize the gender discrimination theories are based on economists, based on sociologists and psychologists. So those are different types. And again, I have structured discrimination. Well, I'm going through those just as a common or general discrimination is available, but I focus more into two kind of discrimination, gender discrimination, which are, I call them, one is a sticky floor discrimination and the other one is a glass ceiling discrimination. Sticky floor mainly has two, I'll just try to brief it here. It happens at the lower end of organizational hierarchy. And it happens when both men and female and male got promoted, but the female getting lower wages. Whereas in the glass ceiling, it happens basically at the higher level of the organization, for the hierarchy. And again, this is like women are hindered from advancement, career advancement. There are some barriers that stop them of going through to break the glass here. Again, usually glass ceiling theory is used to prove that there's a workplace discrimination. Of course, gender is part of this workplace discrimination. If it happens to other type of workplace discrimination, I'm just talking here mainly about gender, but it happens even in minorities as well. Races is another type of workplace workplace discrimination. Okay, so again, it happens because of the negative beliefs of people that says that ability of women in management is not that easy. So still the inception, or I would say the negative beliefs that says women are not capable to do management position or carry out management position or responsibilities. Well, some scholars said that the glass ceiling, they've seen rich and broad interpretation of glass ceiling effects, but not in the application itself of glass ceiling. So this is one way that we can go way out of finding out why this is happening. Other scholars says this is all about what scholars says in the literature review. Other scholars said that nowadays women reach the higher education and higher recruitment, but still they're moving slowly in the labor market for higher position. That's in the yellow part I want to mention about. This is like says, although this is going beyond the glass ceiling, which is happening now. We know that the glass ceiling is all about women advancement and their careers, but it seems that there's something beyond that, which is the differential in the wage itself. So it is not all about the advancement. They reach up to the glass, they can break the glass ceiling, but the wage differential is still happening at that level. Going through the antecedents, we have a long list of antecedents, so I'm trying to minimize this as much as I can, because mainly I will be focusing on mentoring, which is coming as one of those antecedents that I found out. For example, female work group, organization policies, practices, organization support, which include alternative work arrangement and so on. So these are examples of antecedents that have been examined earlier by other scholars. And then I tried to find out other kind of workplace discrimination based on, which is called sexual orientation discrimination. So for example, they found workplace culture and supportive supervisors are different type of consecutive antecedents that have been examined by this kind of discrimination, which is not relevant to, well, somehow is not relevant to gender discrimination, but at the end of the day, we need to know if those antecedents can be practiced and can be applied, examined for gender discrimination. I have more examples here to go for different, for example, family responsibilities discrimination. That's again different kind of workplace discrimination that's happening in the labor market, which is the family responsibility discrimination. So we can always take a look at the antecedents here and try to examine them for the gender discrimination. Now, if I focus on the mentoring, some scholars says that there are some limitations in their research. Says that encouraging people to examine the formal, informal mentor relationship, and so on. They're quite right about what they say, because I found some, limited scholars talk. Few scholars talk about mentoring as antecedent for gender discrimination. But let's see what's the argument in the mentoring. For example, sometimes some scholars said if mentorship is not offered for female, for example, then in this case this will lead to discrimination as an antecedent. Whereas other scholars said if mentoring is there, but the thing is that the information, like the sharing the information in the mentorship relationship is happening, then they will feel like, again, they are discriminated. Where others says, no, if they are getting mentorship relationship, that means that they can move forward. They can always, as a benefit, I can say here, it will help them to accelerate their career advancement, for example. So, yeah. So going to this, let me just wrap up because I'm only talking about the antecedents, where I have a long way to go for the consequences. We have them into three different levels: at individual level, at organizational level, and group level. When you look at the individual level, the consequences of gender discrimination, it could happen as physically and psychologically, like blood pressure, heart disease, and so on, a long list. As I said to you, they're all being tested and examined by scholars, whereas I need to find out what else I can do. There are long lists, as I said to you, career dissatisfaction, conflict with other colleagues, and so on. We'll look at the group level here. It's happening again, wage gaps, job status, and so on. At organizational level, it's happening, for example, financial losses, absenteeism, drop of focus, moral, performance decrement. This is all happening at organizational level, the consequences of gender discrimination. Again, this is another example of different type of discrimination that's happening at the workplace, which is called perceived family responsibilities discrimination, where I can always look into it. Moving to the last bit, which is, I know I'm running out of time because it's only 1 minute left, so let's just get into the final slide. What I noticed basically that the antecedents that are being examined by different scholars, it seems that they are not well organized in a way, like you can see them in different headings and subheadings. So they are not categorized same as the consequences, where in the consequences you can find them at different three levels, individual, organizational, and group. Whereas looking into the antecedents itself, they are not well organized in a way that we need to work hard and to find out a way that to put them in different categories and to make sure that we are covering the whole antecedents. And there's always room to look into those antecedents which have been covered by different kind of discrimination and apply them on gender discrimination, and to see how this would affect, is it going to lower or going to foster the gender discrimination. That's all really, and I think I missed the last part, which is the consequences not being given more time. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Sam. Any questions, please? Osama?
Thanks, Isam. My question is, when you did the literature review, was it there any geographical locations that trending for the articles that you have found about gender discrimination, and any trends in the literature when when these articles, and what location, what is the focus, what is the percentages of these articles that you have been through? Thank you.
So if you just keep the mic with you, because I want to just take one question at the time. First question was the geographical location, you said, yeah? So this is happening all over the world, like basically in Europe, States as well, so mainly at those places. And of course, because they have different articles that you can always read, and that's why, the source are mainly that area. But you can rarely find, I can find few in Middle East, and like in Jordan, Lebanon, and one of those in Bahrain as well. That's for the geographical location. And the other question is?
It was only that, because
Okay.
I could not see that in your literature review as part of the trends that you might find that will help you later on probably.
Yeah, in the beginning I thought that this is only happening in the Middle East, but seems that it's happening all over the world, and this is like the same issues that we face in this country and in the region, it's happening elsewhere, the other part of the world, yeah.
Thank you very much, Isam. I have a question for the systematic literature review. What model did you apply in order to follow the steps for it?
Well, in fact, there wasn't any model, to be honest, to follow, but it seems that I just got my questions, and I was only focused on my questions, and then going through the key, what do you call them, the keynotes or the
key terms.
The key terms, yes, and follow them. And then, because, gender discrimination is a very wide topic. It's broad. You can find thousands of articles. So I have to be very specific and going through the antecedents, consequences of gender discrimination. And then probably I went to other kind of discrimination, which are to do with age, disability, even for sexual discrimination and so on. That already helped me to find out all those antecedents and consequences, which may link together and to find out more factors that could be examined for gender discrimination.
Thank you very much, because my recommendation to you is to confine the key terms in the beginning and make the research questions more specific in a way the results will be clearer to you.
Yeah.
It
is there. Maybe I missed it in my presentation, but it's in my
and
paper.
the exclusion and inclusion criteria you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Assam. I don't have any question for you, just some comments for your future consideration in your work. First one, in terms of, when I see your antecedents, you are talking about individual level, group level, and organizational level.
Yep.
So you need to be very careful about that in terms of which level you are going to adopt, because this which level of them you are going to use in your study, because this will affect on your methodology and your respondent.
Yeah.
So this is the first point to give it your consideration. Second one, and this is a general comment for you and your colleagues in terms of literature. From your presentation, I can see you read a lot about your topic, and you did a very good literature review, which is something interesting, and I thank you for that. But however, I still see something missing in the presentations regarding literature from the Arab region. And I'm quite familiar with some of my colleagues who are publishing on human resource issues and so on in some top journals. Maybe they are not the same topic as yours, but still you can get something from there.
Can I just add one more thing here? You're right, totally right, but
save the time,
maybe I'm not covering regional...
just as I said, for future consideration,
Sure.
no need to comment. Last issue in terms of the empirical implications for your work, I may suggest just at the end of your thesis or when you finish your PhD to have some kind of recommendation for policymakers in the country. That's it, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Kamal?
Sure.
Just I want to get some clarification from you.
Can you just get close to your mic, please?
In your title, you are saying the perceived discrimination. So basically, you are not looking the real discrimination. Is that correct?
Well, it's perception, by the way. It's not real, because real means that I have to find other evidence. But here's more about perception of gender discrimination. Perceptions. It's like perceived by women.
So for that reason, so how the it's called gender discrimination. So then you are reviewing the literature. So your PhD is mainly the review of the literature. Is that correct?
So I have PhD what again?
Your PhD is
Yeah.
largely literature review.
It's, this is, in fact, this is meant to be only as a paper being submitted earlier about perceived gender discrimination, its antecedents and consequences. Yeah, this is all about my PhD, but this is only part of it. It's not the whole of it, because I have to do more about the glass ceiling. I have to find out more things which are, I found some gaps here. I have to build on it.
And if you go to your methodology slides,
The methodology. That's all about literature review. It's not about... there we go.
so I mean, you do need to go in that detail. For example, you use Google Scholar, you
Yeah.
use electronic Brunel library. I mean, so basically, so that's the methodology you will write in your thesis.
Well, this is my approach, to be honest, and this is the way I conducted my literature review. Based on this, I started big and then narrowed down. So this is the way I've done it, and probably I'm sure that as somebody was telling us, like what kind of what was your approach, or what was your model? Maybe I did not follow one, but maybe I'll follow one. I don't know. I covered I started with. Reading, flipping pages and seeing different journals. And then I went very specific and put some questions, and then and I end up with going for all the keynotes here I have, which are the key, like antecedents, gender discrimination, for example, and consequences.
You're talking about a top-down approach. Top-down approach. That's what you're following. Well, thank you very much, Isam. There is a question? Okay.
It's over there.
We have 1 more minute. Yes.
I bet. Don't, please.
Thank you for your presentation. But actually, I have a comment, not a question. In your literature review, there are many theories you used. These theories came from the developed countries, and these are totally different than our culture.
Yeah.
So, and I know that there are many researchers in Bahrain. They did the same from University of Bahrain, and they used the same of your subject. So I think it's better if you see them, to make sure that your PhD is not repeated, and you are doing something new. And it's good if you use the studies from GCC and from Bahrain, so it will be a very more focused than the general theories.
I think I've been spending almost 2 years now reading different articles, either within the region or outside the region. And whatever you're saying, I totally understand what you're saying, but I disagree, to be honest, because everyone has his own way of doing his PhD, and I'm sure that I come up with different approach, different way of doing it. If you look at this, more than 510 articles written over the last 15 years related to the term employment discrimination at Psycho-Info alone itself. So there is still a need for theories. So that means we have more rooms to go for developing theories. So I'm afraid that I cannot agree with you anymore, but it seems that there's always a way of finding different theories and different gaps and so on. So I'm still half the way through, still I have a long way to finish my PhD. Thank you for your note.
Thank you very much, Isam. Dr. Kamal, do you have a question?
Sam, thank you so much for your presentation. I understand that a number of papers have been written in this area, and as what you said, that there's still need for research in this area. But again, you pick one point and you do your research on that. That's just a comment. I am still struggling to understand what is the academic challenge you're trying to tackle in this research. Because we heard another presentation yesterday by Layla. She was also talking on glass ceiling, women discrimination, so on and so forth. And you also have the same element in your work as well. So what is the uniqueness of your research, and what is the academic challenge? This is the core reason you're doing your PhD. So you need to clarify more on that in your research, in your literature review, it should be reflected throughout your work, that this is the reason why I'm doing my research. Thank you.
Doctor, if you allow me to comment on this, I was just telling my colleague, Dr. Masalik, about the theories that we can always come up with different theories, and that would suit our culture and so on. So this is one thing. And the other thing is like some factors of antecedent and consequences being covered and examined by different scholars. But I'm sure that there are still more to go and to find out different factors of antecedents and consequences were not being covered by different scholars. So I think those two areas that I would say would help me to add like the challenges of academic. Or
that's fine, but to what extent we'll keep on researching in this area? We cannot keep on finding antecedents and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
There's got to be a limit at where we stay that, okay, that's it. I understand this is not possible as well, but from your understanding, do you think that your work can come to an end that, okay, we have now a solution where we can end this discrimination and so on and so forth?
Well, this is like ongoing, as I said. It's not like never ending, and it depends from culture to another culture. I mean, probably at the end of the day, if I finish my, I mean, this is too early to say it, but it could help the policymakers to modify and amend all those policies that like anti or against this gender discrimination. So probably at the end, that would help me in the but not, again, you're talking about the academic part of it, and I go back again to my comment, which is, of course, there are still more rooms to go and theories to come up with and factors that could add up. And this is like ongoing, continuous happening. It's not only me as a scholar here, but others. Even if I stop myself now, today, there will be tens of people doing the same thing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to invite Nader Al-Qathar. Nader. The presentation of Nader Al-Qathar's presentation is the title, Comparative HRM Practices Among M&E Subsidiaries versus Local Firms in Saudi Arabia. Okay, Nader, you have 15 minutes for the presentation and 5 minutes for questions.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome, everybody. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Nader Al-Khatar, and also I need to give welcome to my supervisor, Dr. Adil, but he's not here. But also my Brunel supervisor, the one that I called him, he's the golden supervisor, because for his full cooperation, and I give him also my regards and my respect. Yeah, before I start my presentation, I'm going to give you, I will spend only 2 minutes to give you my, we call it the journey of the PhD, or the story of the PhD. Okay. Yeah, the story of the PhD, I have read a lot in the literature review, and I found the Saudi Arabia has big size of the enterprises or firms. This is called multinational firms, we call it subsidiaries, and local firm, and we call it domestic. This is the big size, around 400,000 firm, but the output of this firm, it is very low. Yeah, it is the contribution in the gross domestic product and the economy of Saudi Arabia is very low. We found in the literature review there is the most important things who affect this one, human resources management. That's why it will be clear the title of my research is Comparative Human Resources Management Practices Among Multinational Subsidiaries versus Local Firm in country of Saudi Arabia. I think it is clear now, the title of my study. Yeah, the agenda, I'm going to demonstrate the objective and the gap of the study. Of course, the literature review summary and the conceptual framework of the study and the methodology and data analysis and mapping table of the study. The objective of the research, yeah, of course, to contribute in the literature review by adding new research. I'm going to add new research that support for the HRM globally, and especially will be support for Saudi Arabia country. Yeah, the main thing, the main goal, the second one is, my target to compare between human resources practices. I have 5 human resources practices. Of course, I have selected this one, depend in the theories, but I'm not going deeply to go for these theories. Yeah, this is the training, recruitment, evaluation, reward, and retention. Retention or turnover is the same. Yeah, among multinational subsidiaries versus domestic enterprises. Yeah, the third aim, which I want to do it, is to measure the impact of a human resources manager or human resources director. Yeah, involvement and development on HRM practices. You know, everybody, yeah, this is the majority, all the companies, they are using line manager who responsible for the recruitment, responsible for training, line manager. Almost we can say in the practical almost we can say 80%. But if we can invite or assign HR director, of course we will see what is the impact of we can invite and welcome HR director to do these practices. Yeah, what is the gap, the problem? Yeah, the local enterprises in King Saudi Arabia is below suspected output in contribution to gross domestic product and Saudi economy. The major challenge, yeah, to domestic in Saudi Arabia, they are depending on the foreign, yeah, they depend on the foreign labor as a result of poor human resources practices. This is the one that training is poor and recruitment, all these the 5 in the country. Most of these companies don't have a professional human resources department structure. This is the gap. The literature review summary. This is the summary of my literature review. The human resources management in Saudi Arabia evaluated by some researcher and scholar that human resources management in Saudi Arabia tend to have low management in some areas of HRM. This is the area, of course, that we have seen it. We have around 50 area of HRM, security, loyalty, but I have selected only 5. I said before, depend for some theories, I study it in the literature review. As well on the common standard for the, okay. Then the huge capacity of domestic enterprises in Saudi Arabia, this is very big, around 400,000, and we have seen, yeah, by percentage, I'm going to tell you this is the one around 90%, 90% of the, this is the public sector, private sector, and only 10% of public sector. But if we compare, we see the public sector is more higher, because you know the Saudi Aramco, almost all the economy depends from the public sector. Saudi Aramco, yeah, the Aramco company from the oil. But the contribution of the private sector is very, very, very low compared to the size of these companies. The Saudi culture and religion. I'm going to delete this, the culture. I cannot be, we can call it the customs. Yeah, has a big influence on the business operations, especially human resources management, closing firms during prior time, and the marketing area of separate gender at the workplace. Yeah, this the literature review said this is, of course, will affect and human resources management maybe negatively because of you demarketing, separate the woman, separate the gender, man and woman, put him in another place and put like a block between him could be affect negatively. This is the literature review said, but we will get this result in the in my results, yes. The conceptual framework. This is my framework. Of course, I built this framework from literature review, depend on the literature review. This is the existing framework in the literature review. My contribution here only for 1 square. We have, if we can see it, I'm going to involve, assign human resources director to these practices. If you see the practice in the left hand, the recruitment and appraisal, training system, reward, retention, this is the practices we have it. Of course, this is the headquarter and all this. My independent variables, human resources practices that we have 5. And of course, my dependent variable, it will be the dummy in the data analysis. Of course, the control variable, this is the common for any research. We can, do it, this is the common. And the headquarter country of original, this for headquarter of original, that's the mother company, we call it. From, could be from USA, could be from the UK, could be France, from any place. My research, I used the quantitative approach. Of course, the quantitative is to measure. For example, the quantitative, it will help you to measure our speaking. If we can measure our speaking, it will be, satisfactory data, and we are happy by data. But if our speaking, we cannot measure it. We can call it rubbish or garbage or miss. This is useless data. Of course, in my questionnaire, it is with 2 tests I have done to my questionnaire face validity with my supervisor, Dr. Adel and Dr. Satwinder. And the content validity with 3 academic who knows the culture about Saudi Arabia, who hold PhD degree. Of course, the ethical consideration, I have done it with the Brunel department in the business school department. The questionnaire has 8 sections with 80 we call it with 80 elements, and I have open questions also. This is around the 5 open questions I have. The population, my population, it is around exactly 1,003 joint stock farm in King Saudi Arabia. This is, I distribute 842 domestic and 161 multinational. My sample size, according to the equation here, I'm not going deeply for this one, it is 286, the sample size of this research. The survey field work, my field work here, of course, I collected the information, all this information about 400 companies firm from the Ministry of Saudi Arabia and Chamber of Commerce, of course, the 100%, and they welcome me, and of course, I sent for him, appreciate and thank you for the cooperation. And of course, they motivate and encourage any new research in Saudi Arabia. By email, when I send this is the survey, I send it by email. I'm not happy for this one because only 1% I send around for the 50 participant. The responding, it's very, very, very low by email. It is only maybe 1 guy who can reply to me and cooperate with me. Then for my questionnaire, send it by, call it the monkey survey. A lot of the survey available like Google, in the Google survey, and the monkey survey, this is, I use this one as link and send it by the WhatsApp, and this is, I'm happy for this one, around 85%. Of course, the Chamber of Commerce, they provide me the contact number of this one, the mobile number, and I send it for him. Yeah, hard copy, it is yeah, around 80 files, made them in the King Saud University, and they are, of course, cooperate with me, and they fill all the questionnaires. Yeah, data analysis, for the data analysis, yeah, of course, I have done for data analysis the pilot test. The pilot tested 30 companies for, I get the information from 25 firms, 13 domestic firms, and 12 multinational firms. I used the monkey survey for this one. Yeah. Yeah, data screening, if you can see for this the data analysis, I have data screening, factor analysis, I have done reliability, normality of the data, all this, the one I have done it before. And this is the mapping table of this study. Yeah, this is the question. I have 3 questions, and how will support how to solve the hypothesis. This is, I have 8 hypotheses. Yeah, almost right now, yeah, I'm going to do the examination of the data for maybe next coming month through the SPSS version 23 application. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Nader. Any questions? Any questions?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
So I have a question concerning one of the slides. It was about the GDP contribution of local firms in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
So by local firm, do you refer mainly to SMEs, small to medium-sized enterprises?
Yeah, regarding the contribution of the local firm in the GDP.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the mention in the literature review around, it is very low because around...
Are those mainly small and medium-sized enterprises?
Small, medium size.
So I'll tell you why I'm asking, because in a country like the UK and many Western countries, SMEs represent about 99% of the total.
Yeah, of course, I categorize.
Organizations, and they contribute a lot to the economy. So on your slide, it seemed like it was the opposite in Saudi Arabia. So that surprised me. But are those the real statistics?
Yeah, for me, I categorize this one for maybe who has maybe for the small or medium or we call it mega and giga enterprises in Saudi Arabia. This is depend for the establish of this company in the Saudi Arabia, depend for the how many employees, the size of the employees, the sales revenue. All this one, I have it in the questionnaire. I have it as we call it this, the one, the demographic variables. I have this one. Of course, I'm going to consider this one.
My question was mainly curiosity. So since you say that local firms do not contribute that much to the GDP of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, this is the literature review said to me like this one.
So that was a surprising outcome for me statistically. The next question is, so what do you exactly compare between, in terms of HRM practices, what type of practices do you compare between local firms and multinational companies?
Yeah, we are going to let me to go back to the framework. Here the framework, I'm going to see the recruitment, for example, the recruitment is higher or lower in the, to compare between this one, which is better. Yeah, maybe it will be the recruitment in the...
So how will you determine which one is better?
Yeah, this is, it will be from the, still, I haven't done the examination for the data. When I have, done the examination of the data, here in, right now, the output, it will be, of course, multinational, multinational firms is better and higher than the local firm.
So let's take appraisal, for example.
Appraisal,
So
yes.
if you find that in multinational companies, they have a lot of appraisal processes, and that in local firms, they have few, what would your conclusion be that it's better in multinational companies? I'm trying to understand how you would compare this.
To compare...
You understand the question? So let's assume in multinational companies you find that they have very, very detailed appraisal processes.
Yeah, this is
right?
the the appraisal is like the evaluation for the evaluation for the employee,
Yeah.
for the assessment of the employee. Yeah, this is.
So would the presence of an appraisal
No,
process...
my questionnaire, maybe this is one under the appraisal, I have it in the questionnaire, this one.
No, but I think I need to explain my question. So would the presence of an appraisal process in a company be considered positive or negative simply
Yes.
because it's there? Or would you consider other aspects of it? So for example, I'll try to hint at what I'm saying. In some organizations, obviously big ones, there are appraisal processes.
Yeah.
But the employees of the companies may not appreciate these appraisal processes, and they may be counterproductive in a way. So that's why I'm asking you the question. Is it just a yes, it's there, or no, it's not, and then if it's there, it's better? Or are you looking at it in a bit more detail? And I know you haven't finished yet, so...
Yeah, for me, I'm going to see the different, only to see the difference between, for example, I have seen this one, they maybe appreciate or reward the employee after 1 month for the multinational company, but for the domestic company, they forget, never, maybe give feedback to the employee and not care about this one. Of course, I'm going to say this is the appraisal in multinational company is higher than domestic company. Of course, I have, a lot of study. I designed one table around 300 scholars or articles who talk it about the appraisal and what they find, the finding of this one. Yeah, they will support me for the, still I'm not coming to the data examination.
So my advice is be careful. Just because there's a formal process in place doesn't necessarily make it better than a company in which there's an informal process.
Yeah, but excuse me, this one, it is not only me. This one around, done in the Turkey, done in the UK, done the
You mean
comparative.
previous
this one.
studies?
Yeah, the existing for all countries
But
around.
you can be critical about previous studies. You don't have to accept them blindly. So that's it.
Okay, I appreciate. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Other questions? Dr. Ahlam? Okay, go ahead, and then you can give.
But if you go to your objective, so in your research, there are 3 objectives.
Yeah.
And in your title, why you choose the second one? So just in your title, it says comparative SRM practices among M&E subsidiaries versus local firm. But in your objectives, it is much broader. So why you are limiting to this?
Why I mentioned I need my target to compare human resources. Yeah, this is my target to see the, this is the training, recruitment, evaluation, to see it, how's working, how's running in multinational company, and how's running to the domestic company.
No, maybe you didn't get my point. I mean, there are 3 objectives, which you are testing.
1, 2, 3, yes.
But you are, in your title, only the second one, third one.
Third one?
Measure the impact of HR managers. If you look at your title, title of your work, comparative HRM practices among M&E subsidiaries versus local firms. That is only one of your objectives. So your research is much broader.
Yeah.
Then my question, why you are, in your title, so why you are limiting only to one objectives? Because you are doing much more than that.
Yeah. Okay. Good notes from you. Appreciate for this one. Thank you very much for this one.
Dr. Ahlam?
Nader,
Yeah.
For me, I did not understand the linkage between your topic to your objectives to your conceptual framework, and I got lost with what you are talking about the data. First of all, what is your contribution
My contribution, I have read in the literature review and I found my contribution, I need to, the human resources director, human resources manager, the manager, I am going to assign, I let him to be responsible for human resources practice. Okay.
No one is responsible?
No, yeah, this is the literature review said.
Who's saying this?
The literature review said.
Who? This is model you are comparing.
Who? You need the name of the.
No, you are comparing this model. You are testing this model. This model is built by someone, by researchers, by scholars?
This is done in the Turkey. Yes, this model run in the Turkey.
Tested where? This model was tested where, Nader?
Tested where?
Yeah.
Yeah, tested in the Turkey country.
And how successful was?
The HR, human resources, I changed the he selected different exercises, or he selected loyalty. The recruitment appraisal training system, this is the one that common use from the literature review. This is the
typical model. You did not add anything to this.
No, I add. No, I said I add here the moderator here, the one that I added, the human resources manager.
Who developed this model?
Me.
No, you are building your model on others, right? On other research.
I use this model, but I have add contribution to this model. Okay, this is okay. It's done in the Turkey country, but for me, because I have the exercises, which the exercises use it in the Saudi Arabia, I have added here.
My advice to you is you have to go back to your objectives, define them. They are not clear. What do you mean you want to support HR globally and support context of? What do you mean you want to support? First objective.
Yeah, to contribute in the literature review by adding a new research that support HR globally and support the HR context. Yeah, of course, this one, nobody have done this one. This is the unique research it will be. Nobody have done it in Saudi Arabia. That's why I'm going to add something to maybe the other PhD who will do other guys who are going to do PhD, are going to support him. Also, even though they will support for the companies.
Dr. Talan?
Okay, Nader, I don't know where to start from. I think the people before me have done enough to provide constructive criticism. Let me start with the easy questions. How many data have you collected so far?
So far, I have collected around 150.
So how many did you send to by the Survey Monkey?
Yeah, the Survey Monkey I have sent around the 50 participants.
You've sent it to 50?
Yeah, 50, yeah.
And how many did you get back?
I get back around, they are all high responding and speak around, around 45.
Okay.
The 85%.
So how can you send 50 by Survey Monkey?
No, I said for you.
By email, you mean?
No, by WhatsApp application.
By WhatsApp?
The social media WhatsApp, the contact number, the Conceal Chamber of Commerce, the manager, he provide me all the contact number of human resources manager. All, of course, my participant of this one, human resources manager, the director. Only each company I have selected only one guy who is the human resources director.
Okay, and what about the other one? What did you send?
By email, they are, I sent by email, but no.
And you got 85% from the other one?
Yeah, the hard copy. There is one ceremony last 2 weeks have done in Saudi Arabia.
How many?
Yeah, around 72 companies. All of them I have done the hard copy and give him. I spent 10 minutes for each manager
Each
there.
company is one observation?
Again?
Each company is one observation or?
Yeah, each company one observation, yes.
So how many companies do you want?
Yeah, this one day I run it, I have it here. Yeah, there was 80 firms in this ceremony. For me, I get around maybe could be 60 firms.
What's your sample size? You calculated somewhere there.
Where calculated somewhere? Yeah, just a minute. Yeah, this.
So how many do you want?
Yeah, the sample size. Yeah, for me, the sample size 286.
286. How many do you have now?
Around, not exactly 150. Around 150. I did not exactly.
How are you gonna get
No,
the
it's
rest?
still open. Still my questionnaire is still available in the survey monkey.
What's your deadline for that?
The deadline for me, it will be, could be, I'm close this questionnaire, 25 days or 1 month, I will close the questionnaire.
And when did you start collecting the data?
Yeah, I start, could be last 3 months.
So you have no hope of actually reaching this 286 according to what you just, unless you do something different.
You ask me?
You have no hope of reaching your minimum sample size given the time you already spent and what you have received already. How are you going to reach this 286?
Yeah, because already with him, right now, there is, I contact him by phone, I send for him reminding, please, can you respond for this one? Maybe, could be after maybe 1 week, 2 weeks. Already I sent it to him, but still I'm waiting their response. But they not say to me, I will not do it or do it, I'm waiting for him.
Okay.
But keep reminding him.
I think my advice, there is a general, there are some major problems between what you say objectives and what you say, what you have achieved, and the people before me have mentioned that. So there is a major issue with the story that you need to sit down and figure out what's your story, because you don't seem to have control over the story. The presentation is full of spelling mistakes, very, very silly spelling mistakes, so you need to really figure out that. I am worried about the fact that you will not be able to meet your deadline given the speed by which you are collecting the data. So you need to be careful of that. And also, just general story problem. There is a systematic and systemic problem in your story that you need to look at urgently. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Kamal?
Time's not finished for questions.
No, I agree to most of the comments and the feedback given to you right now. And please take this criticism positively. It's for your betterment. To be honest with you, you need to go back and start working from the scratch from what I see right here now. Why? Because there is no, and I totally agree with Ahlia as well, there is no clear link between the title, your objectives, and the framework. If there is no clear link before the methodology side, then whatever you do after methodology is wrong. So you need to first clarify why are you doing this research, what is the rationale, which is again not clear from your slides. So my suggestion is to please go back and think the comments we've given you positively and revise your work.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Nader.
You have a question?
Thank you for your presentation. Can you go to the your objectives? The second one, you said to compare HRM practice. Here is very general. What do you mean by practice, do you mean the good one and the best one? And if I am in your shoe, I will select one or two, because you will be very generic if you say training, recruitment, evaluation, reward, retention, so many practices. So to be focused, maybe you just choose 2 elements and you go depth on them. It would be more focus in your objective.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let me to answer you. There was one study, he used 16 practices. 16, he used it in his research. A lot of guys use 14, 24, 30. I used 5. This is almost the minimum. I haven't seen any researcher who did only one.
Yeah, okay. If you say for a training, for example, for the training, what are you going to compare? The practices in the training compared to what is in general and what is in Saudi Arabia. So what the elements in the training are you going to select for comparison? Just a question for you. You give me answer for that.
Excuse me, there is no time maybe right now to go deeply for this one. If we can maybe after,
Okay, yes, maybe you can ask him afterwards.
Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nader.
Okay.
Thank you.
The session is over. We have break for 10 minutes, please.
Okay, Anjum? Thank you. Do you need anything? No, you're fine. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, hello. Good morning still. Welcome to all of you to the fifth and last section of presentations of this symposium. And well, one thing we are going to see from the 4 presenters we are having in this session is how varied the subjects can be. We will start with multicultural issues, followed by information security impact, neuromarketing and ethics, and finally we have a subject that is related to physical therapy. So I would like to welcome now Sayed Fadul, who is going to give us his presentation on the relationship between multicultural teams and project performance. Welcome, Sayed.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Sayed Mahdi Fadl. Today I'm presenting for you part of my research thesis. It is actually what I have submitted for my symposium paper. The relationship between multicultural teams and project performance. Actually, we'll start with the layout of this presentation. First of all, we'll start with the research background, research rationale, statement of research problem, aim, and impact of culture framework. I have some more titles, but there is no space for it. So it will be quick, actually. It's not 10 slides maximum, as Victor Delal said. From the research topic, multicultural. Multicultural actually has been emerged from the term, because of globalization all over the world. Globalization has made the world as a single village, and there is some advantages of this globalization, which made some influence and creativity mixed from all the other culture coming to another countries, developing their countries, people coming from developed country to developing countries and all over it. Yes, a project and teams are getting more diverse in the compositions, and team members from various countries come together closely to work as a team. Managing the cultural diversity is significant as per the literature, and there is recently a broad understanding for the necessity to deal with the diversity in all kinds of organizations and projects. Number of researchers has investigated culture in projects and asserted that our understanding of cross-cultural management is still adequately developed and somewhat limited, and there is a very limited theoretical and empirical studies concerning the cultural diversity and its impact on performance. So this is what we're going to look at. The research is in the area of people management shows lack of a study with the concern with the aspect of a cultural aspect, and it looks as emerging topic as we were going later through the literature. We're going to see the papers which talk about culture and its impact on the performance. So there is still confirmation for the need for investigation, the cultural influence on the project teams and project performance. And this is actually the aim of this paper. The aim is to recognize the relationship between the multicultural teams and project performance. First of all, through the literature, we just go through from 1998 to 2000 recent papers, looking at the papers which talk about the culture and how does it impact on performance. There's numerous studies which says that the culture really impact on the performance, and there is a positive impact on it, and there is a negative impact, and there is some researcher which says there is no relation at all. However, several researchers claim that diverse team, multicultural teams, shown to outperform monocultural teams. So here is some comparison of, there is some summary of the papers which says why it is positive and why it's negative. Positive, it impacts positively to providing a greater skill base and a broader range of visions, improve problem solving capabilities, and create greater creativity. On the other hand, negative as its impact on communication between the team, and it will make it less cohesive, and get, as a result, it will reach to more conflict. Some researcher, as you can see, and most of the recent papers, it says that there is dual impact of culture on performance. So they say when culture diversity managed well, it will be an asset to the organization or to the project or whatever, and will enhance performance. And once it's ignored, it will increase the possibility of generating problems. Therefore, it will reduce productivity. The disagreement between these reviews raise an essential concern of how best we can analyze and investigate this. Actually, going through the previous researches, we can see the dimension or the cultural dimensions, what they have investigated, and how does it relate or impact on the performance. Numerous researchers, they said cultural diversity impact on the team performance, while the others, they said cultural diversity impact on project performance. But each of these researchers, they look at one concern in the team performance, like looking at the trust. Culture will impact on the trust, or culture will impact on the integration or things. So from the literature, we came to a framework. We have created a framework which summarize and link the dimensions together. I came up with cultural dimension will impact on team performance, and team performance, it has an impact actually on the project performance. Culture, some of the researchers, as I mentioned before, they have stated that culture do have an impact even on the project performance. But there is no clear, research says which dimension exactly impact on what, or some of them have only looked at some of the dimensions. So here we're going to examine, and this, at the end of this research, actually I'm up to this stage in my thesis, just formalizing my research framework, and some changes might happen on it, but up to now, I come to this stage. Thank you, and any question?
Thank you very much. So I will open now for questions, and I would like also to encourage the students to ask questions, and maybe it's people who just finished recently, because it might help you to understand more how to proceed with your research work, and it will also help him. Okay? Welcome. Professor Waji first.
Thank you very much for the interesting presentation. I have a few questions.
Yes.
You talk about performance,
Yeah.
but you didn't clarify what kind of criteria you are using to measure the performance. You mentioned productivity. Productivity, is it individual productivity or it is a total productivity? And when you talk about project performance, you mentioned something about cost, time, quality, and scope.
Yeah.
But you didn't mention anything about value creation. Actually, here you need to concentrate on the contribution of the team or people to create value. Otherwise, if you don't create value, if you're going to destroy value, then you are not doing any good things. So, in your opinion, what would be the right measures or measure to measure value creation in your project or in your company? Thank you.
All right. Actually, going through this framework, I have picked the most variables of a project performance which has been mentioned and agreed on most of the researcher. So there are some more variables actually, but I didn't add them because it's not agreed, or some has mentioned them and the other has not. So I need to have more investigations to add or to remove. So up to now, this is what I got.
And how to measure it? Because if you don't have a clear idea about the right indicator, then what about cost? What about time? What about quality, scope? They are not leading you to any concrete conclusion. So what you need to be very careful to identify the right performance indicator and try to focus on that. Otherwise, it's going to be really very difficult for you to come up with a conclusion. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. One
slide where you have your aim.
Yeah, actually this is one aim.
What's your contribution here? That tells me that this is something you're going to do.
Yeah.
But as a result of that, what is your contribution?
Actually, to find out how does the culture impact on the performance.
Well, we know that. So what's new there?
No.
Culture has an impact on ABC, XYZ. It does have an impact. So what? What's new here?
Actually, how does it impact in the multicultural teams? There is no much studies has been made on this, and there is a call or a need for it. This is what we're going to investigate now.
Okay. So there is a gap, right?
Yeah.
But what's the issue? What's the problem?
The problem is multicultural or cultural diversity in teams is affecting, as obviously.
But isn't diversity a good point? I mean, having multicultural people in the organization, isn't that a good thing for an organization? Rather than having all whites or all XYZ people, you have diversity, you have more different minds.
Yeah.
So what's the issue then?
The issues, it depends how is we have to examine the variables. Some of them, they looked at one variable which says it is good because, it has integration or things, to make creativity. they look at only one dimension, one aspect. We are here going to make a framework, quite comprehensive, to look at all the things or and examine them and to see
You've got to
them
be
in
very
the market.
careful by using the words comprehensive and all the
It will not
things.
be.
So you better not use these. These are very strong terms. So you shouldn't say comprehensive or strong, all, because you cannot include everything.
Yeah, I know.
But
that's why I said quiet.
okay, thank you.
Yes.
Now, I have two small questions for you, and I think there is a contradiction in the concept of culture you're talking about. Because you started by talking about globalization, you talk about the global village. But in the global village, we're supposed to have a unified culture. And then you jumped into the diversity of culture. And I think you need to be very clear here. You see, because globalization, by
I used the wrong term, maybe.
well, I mean, there's so much literature written about this particular subject, and all the literature points out to the fact that globalization is diluting the culture of many people around the world. And that's why diversity, it is very important. As a matter of fact, and this is what I also would like you to probably look into, because there is this verse in the Quran, وَخَلَقْنَاكُم مِّن ذَكَرٍ وَأُنثَى وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. And that's exactly what you are basically talking about. So this diversity among different groups, different people in different parts of the world will definitely enrich our understanding and our communication and everything you're talking about. Now, it is also important, I think you should look at, for example, the experience of Southeast Asia over the past, let's say, 20 or 30 years. Because that part of the world, that region, grow more faster than any other region in the world. And many people believe that the reason for that was due to the culture, to the Buddhist culture. So you need basically to try to identify what are these elements in that culture that help that part of the world, for example, to become one of the most, let's say, progressive countries in the world.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor
You
Amer.
can just incorporate and compare actually between, because my focus will be on the GCC countries. So I can take it as example,
I think you should. And the World Bank published a very popular book. It's called The Asian Miracle. You should look. And in that book, actually, they put lots of emphasis on education, on culture, on investment that help most of these countries.
Thank you very much, Professor Amer. I think we need to move on to Professor Mansour now.
Thank you. I find this research really very interesting, and I think there is a lot that can be done and achieved from it. But I have something regarding the scope of your work. Because you can tackle it from so many angles. For example, the impact of different cultures on the project. Are you going to measure that? Negative or positive? The second thing, this culture issue, does it affect certain types of projects more than it affects others?
Yeah, that's why in my
So
study,
there are a lot of questions. And in my view, it's very interesting, but unless you sort of focus the parameters upon which you will base your research, you can go into a big forest kind of thing. Otherwise, it's very interesting. We all would love to know the results.
All right, thank you.
Great.
Actually, I'm focused on
Hassan?
the construction things, but I didn't mention it here. It will be taken as a case study later.
Hassan there, right? Yes.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I have a colleague, she has done a similar study in her thesis. However, she focused on the 100 best companies in USA. That was her case for the influence of diversity on organizational performance. One of the measures could be, I suggest, is to measure, did this team achieve the objectives that they were built on?
Actually, the objective or the goal of the teams to achieve objectives of the
But by
project
having
services,
diversity, can they achieve the objectives in a better way?
there will be complicity, or there will be difficulties between, as I mentioned, there will be conflicts, trust, and things, some dimensions that will be taken into account. If we manage them, we'll get a better performance.
So probably if you can't measure these kind of like scales, probably it could be a qualitative study to explore
Actually,
these kind of.
to look at what exactly the problem between this, what exactly the problem between teams, how does it, how to make it effective, how to make it work, how to make it to share, knowledge between each other. We'll look what is the exact problem between them and to the solution.
Okay, 2 more questions, one for you.
I would have to agree with Professor Mansour. It is always attempting to understand the cultural issues impacting anything, impacting socially or economically, but I have to, based on experience, I even had that cultural aspects on my thesis. Culture is a huge, huge world that you're getting into. And even when I looked at your framework, you used national culture elements by Hofstede, and it was not referenced properly, but even the national culture elements, they're huge. Even people, they try to segregate them into piece by piece and try to, so I would like your thoughts on, you're focusing on national culture, because national culture, there's different elements and facets of culture. You have national, organizational, personal, group, whatever. So you have to be careful with that, because I felt the same trap in the beginning, and I was told by the fine supervisors and colleagues, it's a very thin line when you talk about culture. You have to be very careful, otherwise you will get yourself in a very big school.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Now,
Thank you.
question there. Okay, let's see. 30 seconds. Did you want to ask a question as well? Okay, great. Okay, the last question for you.
Thank you for the presentation. Actually, I was going to ask a question and a comment, but my colleague over here, he already said something. If you look at the independent variables, you have 4, and those independent variables are, from Hofstede's studies.
Yes, you're
So you need to go and to look at those studies and to see what is the impact and the effect. Actually, in the literature, a lot has been written about this, the effect of those independent variables on productivity and performance. And there was, comparison between different cultures from different countries. So the literature is very rich, and I think you could add a lot if you're going to apply this study to the culture in
Great.
Bahrain.
Can we pass on to Dr. Tilal, please?
Okay, I'm not going to speak for too long, but I think there is sometimes, it's a common malpractice, I think, that people try to very quickly jump into a quantitative model with dependent and independent variables. And the faster you do that, the longer it will take you to finish. And given all these sudden, all these questions, people asking you about the validity and the accuracy and linking between this. And when you talk about culture and globalization and performance, there's so many things, and I think you just need to take it slowly and look at also issues about qualitative understanding of some of these links, because it's not just a measure, my culture is affecting my performance by 0.7. I can't, that's just not going to work. So you need to be careful by deciding on dependent and independent variables, and you think, okay, just sausage machines, garbage in, garbage out, and then you get an output. So get your story, get your philosophy and your intellectual idea right, and then think about these models.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Tilal. Now, yes, you, okay. Rada, Dr. Rada.
Yes, yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Can you just rephrase your question, please?
You have a dependent variable.
Yeah.
4 dependent variable and the 4 independent variable.
Mm-hmm.
So how you can test 4 dependent variable to your left-hand side?
Actually, it will be examined independently.
So you will, for example, cost at one time,
Yeah.
time next time, that quality.
Yeah, this is actually will be big little bit, but this is my initial idea.
Okay, so and you think only these are the 4 independent variables which are critical to your analysis.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the only 4.
These are what I found out, because depends on by literature. Some of the researchers, they said integration, some of them communication. It has been affected by communication. So all factors which is affected by all the dimensions which is affected by cultures, just make them together and one.
In some
as a team
cases, for
performance.
example, trust, how you will quantify that? If you are using quantitative model, you have to quantify,
Yeah.
You need numbers.
Yes.
For example, trust, quality, scope. So how you will quantify that? And
Yes.
you will use.
He will need to find some key performance indicators that will actually be related to trust. Now, I'm afraid this is a really great session for Syed. He really needs as much input as we can give him. So I trust this will continue later on during lunch with him. Thank you very much, Syed.
Thank you for listening.
And now we'll call Mohammed Hasbini. Mohammed is going to talk about examining information security impact on organizational performance in the context of smart cities. Welcome, Mohammed.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for your presence. My name is Mohammed Amin Hasbini, and my research is about organizational factors that impact information security management within the context of smart city organizations. My supervisors are multiple, but Dr. Tilal, Dr. Ramzi, Dr. Mansour, Dr. Ammar, thank you all for your support. My agenda is the following: introduction, a bit of background around the topics and the key subjects, research purpose and the questions, methodology, findings, and then conclusion and what happens next. So, a bit of background. We are living in a world where information security issues are becoming existential, are becoming very important for everyone, organizations and members, individuals. And information security is affecting every one of us. We all have digital-based services, and we use digital-based services on everything we do: smartphones, smartwatches. This is on an individual basis. Everyone has tablets, laptops, communication at their house. We all have Wi-Fi infrastructure everywhere. And up to the organizational level, where these become extremely important. And in a geopolitically hot region such as ours, we have information security issues to give more attention. And we are seeing multiple examples. Recently, a bank had their data stolen, and the attackers were asking for a few $1 million as ransom, and then publishing some private customer data on a daily basis. That was just a few weeks ago. Another incident which happened worldwide and took a lot of attention was the attacks on the Ukrainian power grid, cyber attacks, information security issue, where attackers were able to control the electrical facilities, turning off certain regions. That was also another one of the big issues. The examples are numerous. So, in the context of smart cities, which is why I'm here today to tell you about, we have even more dependency and even more reliance on digital infrastructure and digital services and digital technologies, putting information security issues at an even higher level, giving them an even higher priority, which is not being taken seriously until the moment, not by the professional world or the academic world. And we will actually discuss that in a moment. So my concern is specifically information security management. What is that? It is, or before that even, let's talk about smart cities. What is a smart city? Because we hear about it all the day in the news, but we don't really know what it is. I was able to identify in the literature more than 25 definitions of the smart cities, but I only picked one of them, which is a recent one that is a bit more comprehensive. Smart city as a high-tech, that's always number one, high-tech, intensive and advanced city that connects people, information, and city elements using new technologies in order to create a sustainable, greener city, competitive and innovative commerce, and an increased life quality. So this is the smart city in short. What is information security management? It is how we can control and manage security issues within any organization. It could be a government, or it could be a bank, it could be an educational institution, etc. And you can see that my scope is specific to information security management within organizations, within the smart cities, all right? That is my specific scope and what I'm trying to address. The research problem is the mismanagement issues that are happening at the moment and how they will be bigger in a smart city context, in a smart city organizational context. So we're talking about mismanagement issues that are currently known and documented, and how these will be more relevant and more destructional, if you want to say, in a smart city context. The aim is to identify the factors that are most influential to the context of smart city organizations. Okay, organizational factors of information security management, how we can control these information security issues in smart city organizations. So the purpose of this study, or this paper that was recently presented, is specifically highlighting emerging topics that are just from the literature, highlighting information security management issues inside smart city organizations, and trying to identify, that is the end goal, trying to identify more about the factors that impact such issues. The questions that are addressed in this, in my research paper, in my submitted research paper, are specifically how, or what are the factors that impact information security management in current organizations. So we have to summarize these somehow to be able to move forward, and that is answered in my symposium paper. And then the smart city context, what are the factors that we can collect from the smart cities literature. Smart cities, and when we talk about management and information security management, things become a bit narrow, and there is a lack of research in this area, so it's more of an exploration, and I'll talk about that in this slide specifically, my research methodology, I had to start with a systematic literature review, mainly based on Scopus papers, where I was able to identify the main papers around each of the topics. So you can see smart cities, organizations, and information security management. I had to research smart cities organizational aspects, types of businesses, smart city specific aspects. I had to research smart cities information security issues and information security management issues. I had to research also organizational information security management issues. So these were also part of my literature review. And then I had to move a bit into a narrative type of work where I was looking outside the main journals or the main Scopus information towards more of conference papers, Google Scholar-like documents, etc., to identify specifically the organizational factors towards smart cities, because that's not much documented and researched in the literature. 5 minutes? Thank you. Key findings. So, I was able to conclude some important findings, or these are, you can consider them as trends from the literature. The increased importance of information security issues inside smart cities. That is documented in multiple papers. The increased impact of governance. So we have information security issues, which will be quite bigger. We have the governance issues or the management issues, which also will have a large impact, mainly because doing wrong decisions in a smart city digital context is a lot more damaging than doing them in our current world. Lack of IT management and smart cities management research. That is also referenced, and people are complaining about it and blaming the industrial corporates, because mainly the smart city is becoming more pushed by corporates and their marketing campaigns and their marketing funds. And that is documented in multiple papers, especially and starting 2008 by Hollands, which repeatedly emphasized the importance of having independent smart cities, independent from vendors and independent from monopolies. Whitmore even further emphasizes that the next step after having these discussions about the importance of technical issues inside smart cities, technological issues, and then the corporates finishing their activities. Whitmore says that more management research will be done, and more management research will have to be highlighted in the context of smart cities, mainly because of their importance. Even further, Forrester, through, what is it? Bellicent 2011, that is a quote by Forrester, where they say the core of the smart city is the governance. So, information security and governance. These are the main pillars. Then I was able to conclude 2 tables from the literature. One is for the organizational factors that impact current organizations in terms of information security management. So let me rephrase. Information security management, organizational factors in current organizations. And then I was able to identify a table, another table, more difficult. That was more difficult actually because of the lack of literature around that. With the factors around smart city organizational governance aspects. Contributions, mainly the contributions from the literature in my work are about highlighting the 2 trends of information security governance issues inside the context of smart cities, and then highlighting the literature towards the need for more information systems management and information security management within the context of smart cities, and then the tables summarizing the factors that could have impact on smart city organizations. That is to be tested in further steps. Conclusion, these tables that were developed are somehow the summary of the organizational factors that impact information security management, and they will be directly feeding my research design into having, when I will be exploring opportunities to identify the organizational factors within the smart city context. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. Now we will give the first question to Dr. Cesare.
Yes.
Thank you very much for the presentation. My first question is, what is a smart city? I know you had the definition, but it's still not clear to me, because you said it's a city that makes an intensive use of digital technologies.
Yes.
You said it's greener, it's more sustainable. So if a city makes intensive use of digital technologies, but these technologies are not used for sustainability purposes, it's not a smart city anymore, or yes? Or so what is a smart city?
What is a smart city? So a smart city, and this is why there are multiple and so many definitions of a smart city that I just indicated. I found 25 definitions, because smartness is an unlimited concept. There is no specific indicators for a smart, or what is a smart. And that is also being discussed extensively in the literature. How can we evaluate a smart city? Because everyone decides that the smart city has a specific definition, and they go with it. Some people talk about creative city. Some people talk about entrepreneurship city. Some people talk about the green city. Some people talk about the ecological city. Some people talk about the educational city. And these are just names of the city. Some people even recently, a paper was talking about real-time city. So there is no real definition but what you set in your scope. So in the region even, there are multiple countries trying to become smart, or multiple cities trying to become smart, including Manama, including Dubai, including even in Saudi, Riyadh. But each have their own goals, which they pick from this pool of goals. Some people, for example, some would try to enhance the living quality. Some try to enhance the creativeness, etc.
Are there any typical examples of smart cities in the literature?
There are some test beds, and there are one of them could be Dubai. There is a test. Masdar in Abu Dhabi, yes, exactly.
So what do cities have?
For example, Masdar in Abu Dhabi is an ecological type of city. It's not, the current test bed is more about identifying how we can do things in a more sustainable manner or in a better ecological manner. So that's their focus, not, for example, how we can connect things better or how we can do, for example, more industrial activities.
So in this example, is the smartness managed from above? Is it designed from above?
Yes.
Okay, it's not bottom up, it's top down.
No, it's just how leadership in, for example, different countries would choose how this would go. I know that, for example, there is a smart city in Barcelona being established, and they have focus on having IoT equipment or Internet of Things, where everything is connected, so they can, for example, know that no one is, for example, passing by street X, and then we can turn off the light in street X and preserve some energy. So different goals, different
definitions.
Ways to do it. Thank you.
You may pass the microphone to the person behind you, please.
Thanks, Mohammed. Two questions. Number one, how big is this smart city project? When you talk about smart cities, you give an indication that this is a phenomena going on around the world, but how big is that geographically, and how is your research is going to find something, contribute to those cities?
Let me start by answering that, because I'm bad in remembering past questions. Sorry.
What was the question?
So, you can consider smart cities the new name for competition between the top cities around the world. It's like jealous women, And everyone is trying to, sorry, no offense to anyone, I'm sorry. I love you all, sorry.
You need to be careful here now.
So it's like everyone is trying to become smarter in their own definition and then identifying where they need to push. There is a lot of emphasis almost in everywhere around knowledge and enhancing knowledge and educational knowledge. And then because it is at the core of the city, having extremely professional and extremely skilled human capital. And that also reflects on my work because I'm working on identifying organizational factors. And of course, these are highly impacted by the people inside the organization.
From a broader look, how many, can you say, how many smart cities we have around the world now?
At the moment,
yes,
there are test beds only. There are no smart cities.
Okay. The second question.
This is why my research, by the way, is more of an exploratory research. And it is focused on the region, because I think that was also part of your question. It is focused on the region, mainly because we have multiple cities that are trying to push toward becoming smart, including, I think, the main ones in UAE, Bahrain, and Qatar.
So we only have claims, we don't have confirmed. Only claims.
Even in 20 years, you cannot say that you reached a smart city, mainly because there will be people telling you, why are you not doing this type of smartness, but this type, and you cannot be smarter.
Okay, the second question very quick.
Please be fast, because
yes.
time is running out.
You said corporates are running this. In the contrary, I see governments are running this because you just said that. You just said that governments around the world, they are competing against each other to be claimed as a smart city because there is consequences to this. There is a lot of tourism and consequences to be in a smart city. People try to get there, especially Dubai, because me and you, we know that. So how is corporate running this, but contradictory government is managing this?
Okay, so it's about government trying to become better, okay, for their own sake and for their people's sake, of course, because better cities will attract better human capital. That's also part of the literature research. But when you talk about the smart city context and concept, and how it started its own evolution, it started with being pushed in around 2008, 2009 by huge corporates such as IBM and Cisco. And they have huge marketing capabilities, and that's mostly why everyone knows about smart cities. It's not because there was academic research in the topic, sadly, but because it was pushed by these large corporates.
Okay, Hassan, please, could you keep your questions very concise?
Yes.
And you have 10 seconds to ask your question.
Well, based on the discussion that we have just, Salamat. Okay. Based on the discussion that we have just talked about, my suggestion is to confine your smart cities, because as you said, we have many definitions. Maybe if it's better to make it more specific, like technology-based cities or human capital-based cities. That would give a better maybe understanding for that.
Thank you. So you're suggesting. Okay, next, Muhtar.
Can I comment on that? No?
Yeah, but very quickly.
Okay, but you have to consider that what I'm trying to address is future cities, and future cities will not only have one aspect of the smartness.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Next. Yes.
Hello, Mohammed.
Hi, Salman.
Correct me if I am wrong, please. I understand the smart cities, that it is like smart buildings where people will invest in the technology where they can make automatic control of the things. And the government will invest in the public areas, roads, and everything. So in the end, we will have like a smart hub, and there we will have another one, then it can be expandable, right?
Yes.
Because it is like a networking, because the hubs, they can communicate with each other and they will keep on expanding, right? So like this, what is the meaning of big cities, small cities? Because in the end, you are like creating a unit and you are keep on plugging them together and you are expanding, just serving different purposes like environmental, security, IT, and all the other things, electricity grid like this, right?
So what is the question? Sorry.
What is the
I am
question?
just commenting. is it the concept, the clear concept of smart city?
Okay.
So
okay.
in this case, that means
Listen,
the
thank you
size
very
and
much.
everything.
Listen,
the
it's
size and
clear
everything is
that it's not
a-
properly. People are wondering what is a smart city. Are there any smart cities? So obviously,
I mean,
here
in the
Mohammed
end,
really has to
the sizing is not,
define it
is
properly.
not a
That we will see.
subject because it is a unit and you can expand it, endlessly.
Yes, yes. Please, can we pass? Finish. Okay, we finished the session now. Please continue during lunchtime. Obviously, it's very, very interesting subject. Thank you very much, Mohammed. Amani, may I call Amani Arabas? Amani? Yeah, come. Okay. So Amani will talk on neuromarketing and its ethical.
My name is Amani, and my research is on ethical implications of the use of neuromarketing on children in the entertainment industry. To begin with, here many of you might consider marketing as to be sales. Actually, it's a wrong definition. Marketing, the usual marketing is creating relationships with the customers, creating value for them in order to get value in return. So the value creation here is the core concept of marketing. So how to create value for the customer? So as you can see here, this is a normal or traditional persuasion model or marketing model that is used right now in all areas in business. So usually they will have the persuasion attempt, so they have this advertising, or they are trying to persuade you into buying something. And then they will have these focus groups and get their opinions, and they refine their attempt. Okay, so we will end up with something looking like this. What do you see? What do you see?
A duck.
It's a rabbit or it's a duck? Okay, here's the confusion. So when we ask potential customers, what do you want? Okay, what exactly you want? They will describe their feelings. They will describe what they want. So it is up to their interpretation and our comprehension to understand what they want, and we go and create it. So for instance, if I create this thing, then the customer will say, well, I asked for a rabbit. You gave me a rabbit with big feet. I said, no, I understood that you wanted a duck. So here's the confusion. So that cornered the marketers into getting into more invasive, technologies to get more insights about customers. Hence come the neuromarketing. So what is neuromarketing? Neuromarketing is usually referred to as the use of clinical information about the brain functions and mechanisms. It means that they will use fMRI functioning, the one that scans. I will not say the medical name because it will not mean anything, but it means that scanning the brain or any activity that will actually explore your thoughts, the way you react or the way you feel. Even the way you feel, if you feel fear, if you feel that pleasure, if you feel anything, it will be lighting up in your brain, and then you will know that you are thinking in this way or you are feeling that way. So it is a way in opening the black box, which is your mind. So now we are gaining more insights into what you want. So the thing is about emotions, they are mixed. Sometimes customers do not want to reveal what they think, or sometimes they don't even have a clue about what they want. Okay, so they give us these mixed messages, because of their emotions. Plato once said that the human being's soul is pulled by two horses, horse of reason and horse of emotion. He wanted to get rid of the emotion horse and make the horse of reason take the lead. This is practically wrong. It has been proven. It is the Eliot case, as you can see. Eliot is a guy who had, unfortunately, a tumor in his brain that needed to be extracted. So when they extracted that tumor, something happened in his brain. The part that is responsible for emotions was taken out. Before the surgery, he was a successful father, in the marriage institution. He was a successful businessman. Okay, what happened when they extracted that part of his brain? He was incapable of doing any kind of decision making. In the picture you can see he is even debating whether to shave his face or not. So it takes him like for half an hour to decide whether to shave or not, which is like a program decision you should know if you want to shave or not. So taking that part of his brain, like which is the one who is responsible for emotions, made him incapable of making simple decisions. So he failed his business. His business went into bankruptcy, and he divorced his wife, and so on and so forth. So it shows that in decision-making, emotions are very, very important. So when it comes to neuromarketing and revealing all your emotions directly in timely manner, now you are being more likely exposed. Okay, so as you can see here, the neuromarketing persuasion model, which is we introduce the technology so we can understand you more. Okay, I'm talking too fast? I'm fine. Okay, so for the persuasion model, I don't have a pointer, but if you can see in the middle, they are testing the subjects, they are scanning their brains, and they are getting their reactions towards some sort of product development or new products, or towards some ads. So they are refining their attempts more and more. So for example, if you are trying to market a sports car, then you have to trigger the area of pleasure in the mind. So because it's like of a luxurious car, so it has to be in the pleasure department. So they'll keep refining their ads till that area of your brain will light up. Or for example, if you are marketing insurance usually you should feel fear of the future, fear of losing something or losing your life or something happening to you. So we will keep trying to make you afraid, so you will buy insurance. Okay, so as you can see, these attempts will become more favorable, and maybe at the end you will buy. Of course, many will argue, say, well, nobody can make me buy anything. I agree with you. Nobody can force you, but we can persuade you, okay, like on and on. You can see all of these beautiful things that you buy. Most of them you don't need, actually. Okay, so marketing is effective. However, there are some ethical dilemmas with neuromarketing when it comes to these persuasion models. Okay, they are becoming more and more effective. So they indicate how they ignite pleasurable feelings in consumer that prospective rewards. So psychiatrists think that we can also trigger the correct emotion so we can have a buy button. Okay? Furthermore, James in 2004 said the only time someone will act upon their emotions in timely manner, they are the toddlers or children. Okay, so it means us adults, we are less vulnerable to these claims. We have our own shield, we can think about things. However, children cannot. That's why they are identified as vulnerable group. So they will be more or less hurt by these claims, false claims, or these invasive technologies. I don't mean that they will be harmed during the actual test. They will be harmed by the outcomes of the research because it will be very, very effective. As reviewing the literature, there exists a code of ethics. It's there, but it's lacking in the area of protection of children. There is some, they are acknowledging that, okay, testing on children is only going to happen if we have a consent of parents. But they don't say how they are going to protect them from the outcomes, the other children. Okay, how they are going to protect them and what are the dangers and the concerns. They don't state even one word about it. So just we will take the consent of the parents. Full stop. Okay, so many organizations are profiting from such technology. So now we are on the edge of exploiting these children. My research gap and aim is to assess the applications, the ethical implications of neuromarketing on children, specifically in the entertainment sector. Entertainment sector encompasses a lot of things like movies, video games, whatever, on the entertainment sector. Okay, so you can see a lot of examples. I can think of a lot of examples in that area. Even when you think about toys, like we are advertising toys, all of that. So I also will suggest ways to enhance the current neuromarketing code of ethics by addressing concerns. I have found so many concerns, but they are not concised in one area. So they are all over the place. So I had to bring them together, and at this stage, I have all of these concepts. The main concerns with concerned parties are the autonomy and the free will of children. Autonomy means that autonomy and free will, it means that you have the freedom of doing otherwise, or you are the originator of the idea, as well as you can defend why you did this, in your own mind, of course. So it means that you have autonomy and free will. So now we are afraid that our children are deprived from these things that God gave us, free will and autonomy. Okay, so they're thinking that main thing about that, because marketing is encouraging consumerism, because of consumerism, we will have some physical and psychological concerns. Okay, these are concerns, as I said. Okay, so for the physical part, obesity, as Noor stated, okay, it's skyrocketed, tripled or quadrupled. I don't remember, Noor said something about that. It means we are fatter than ever, our children, basically. And with substance abuse, we mean drugs, smoking, all of that thing, anything that is of abusive or addictive nature. Okay, so, and for the psychological part, we have materialism, sexualization, erosion of creativity, violence, blurred moral lines, and diminishing of cultural values. If I have time, I will explain. 2 minutes? Okay, so I'll just have like a small example about things. Like for example, if you see on the right Pink Panther, I know you, all of you, you know them. My kid is a fan of it, of him or whatever. Okay, but I noticed that each time they play, Pink Panther is smoking actually. So my kid is like doing like this. I was, oh my God. Okay, his favorite character is smoking. Okay, this is a cartoon, and it was produced since 1975, I think. So each time you play Pink Panther, you will see him smoking. So why wouldn't my child? So you can see this is in a cartoon, so it's entertainment industry. So this is an example of substance abuse. And for example, if you remember The Little Mermaid, it's very, very disturbing. And many other movies in Disney. Okay, so she wanted to meet her Prince Charming, but she don't have legs, so she went to a witch and she said, well, I'll give you legs, but you will lose your voice. And she said, how I'm going to communicate? She said, use a body, as simple as that. So it is very, very offensive. So many other examples I can give, but I don't have time. So thank you very much, and I would love to hear your feedback.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yes.
Any questions?
Yes.
Yes, Dr. Tilal. Oh, Dr. Tilal.
So where is the academic content of your work?
You mean the literature review?
Huh?
You mean the literature review?
Yeah.
All of these things came from the literature. It's not from my own mind. I skipped maybe this. I adopted a critical research paradigm. Okay, so it's not, it is because I'm using qualitative methods. Okay, I'm going to do focus groups. So it is, I adopted a critical research paradigm. You want me to, I didn't include the literature review because it will be a lot of things that we'll discuss. So I wanted to first introduce the subject because so many people, they don't understand the neuromarketing concept. So I had to go slowly about that.
And so what is the gap in the literature and problem and what you want to do about it?
Sorry, Doctor, I can't hear you.
What's the gap in the literature and
the gap in the literature, there is an ethical framework, but it is lacking in the Department of Protection of Children, and they are identified as vulnerable groups. Okay, as I said, they only stated that they will take the consent of their parents when it comes to testing them. But the outcomes and all of what follows, they are not protected at all. So these concerns, like I'm not saying them, the literature is saying that these concerns should be addressed. So we have to be proactive before the actual problem happens. Now, neuromarketing, it's at infancy. So why would you wait for the problem to happen, then you say, well, we should be protected, we should protect our children?
Okay, so there's nothing wrong with this, but I take it you have already established that neuromarketing is not necessarily good, or actually is not ethical.
It's not necessarily bad as well.
Yeah, but it's unethical. You have already established it's unethical.
Yes.
And you're just trying to maybe prevent it.
It's not preventing it. There is, for technology, it is like two-sided coin. You can use it in the greater good, and you can use it for like bad things. In the greater good, you can, if you really can find the buy button, then you can flip it around and stop children from like eating a lot, or maybe stop them from having, I don't know, less creativity, or like they are always dependent on technology or these things. So if you find the buy button, you can flip it around. So it depends. My concern is when organizations are using it to profit out of it. Okay, so if you are using it for curing a disease, that would be fantastic. Like, I mean, not like a physical disease, like cultural disease or something.
Okay, so that means, I'm just trying to understand you here. You have established that neuromarketing as a technique could be good, it could be bad.
Yes, of
Currently,
course.
organizations are using it for bad, in
Not
bad
all of
ways,
them, to be honest.
unethically.
Yeah.
Many organizations are profiting from such technology in the
Yes.
children entertainment industry.
Yes.
Yes.
So you're saying it can be better, and you want to find a way to make it better.
No, I want to find a way to protect them. They are going to use it anyway.
You will want to expose them.
It's not exposing them, maybe. But because if you are having a critical stance, you have to criticize them. You have to tell them you've done a bad thing.
Professor Ahlia.
No, I'm just thinking about countries like South Korea, Singapore, Japan, and Taiwan.
Yes.
And they have the probably most smarted kids in the world.
Yes.
And consumerism have become part of life. So what is the unethical practices in marketing consumerism in these countries?
In our country or these countries?
No, but I mean, you know, these are basically countries, they have become very successful. Their children today on top of the world when it comes to education and knowledge and whatever. But they are also heavily involved in these kind of technologies that you are talking about. So what's wrong with that? And
But you're saying
unethical about these kind of practices in these countries?
Okay, that's what she needs to find out. Please, can you pass it to Dr. Daif there? And that is the last question, I'm afraid.
Mukhtar? Or?
No, Dr. Daif.
Dr. Daif.
Very good presentation. I think if I may come to your defense concerning Dr. Talal's point of view that are you protecting them or actually pushing them? I think what you're talking about is a set of guidelines for perhaps parents or whoever it is to see that their children follow the right, well, buy the right thing and so on. So some of them will say, no, don't buy that, using again this neural whatever marketing, or buy that. That is just a point. But my question is, what was my question? No, my question is, sorry.
Okay.
I understand what he means. It means that it is from organizational point of view. I'm not telling the parents to do this and do that. I'm telling organizations be more reasonable or have some ethical, like stronger ethical codes to protect these children. That's what I'm saying. I'm not telling the parents to do anything. However, the concerns are from parents as well. Parents are concerned, concerned parties, activists, they are all concerned about all of these things. So it's not for, this research is not intended for families only, it's for organizations. Yes.
You remember your question? Okay.
Can I?
Yes, sure.
Yes.
Your research is about what you call the children entertainment. Now, you have not defined what you mean by children entertainment. Are you talking
Children
about...
in the entertainment
Sorry, what are you doing? Because you've given a number of examples about food or about eating this, not eating that. But what's the children? What do you mean by children entertainment? Do you mean films, watching films, reading books? I don't know, a series.
Entertainment industry encompasses a lot of things. It has to do with video games and stuff. For example, if your hero in the cartoon, they are abusing things, then most probably your kid will, because they are looking up to them. Maybe they think it is all right to do so. So, for example, if they have all of these big tables filled of food and it's okay for them to eat, then at the end they will become obese. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, but here you see, this is the point. If you go to obesity and so on, that's not entertainment.
Yeah, I understand, but the implications of...
So my advice to you, I'm sorry to feel, to sound pedantic, but my advice to you is to pin it down, because always, research is about pinning it down, as earlier, I think the gentleman said that you have to focus on one point. So if you're talking about children, then you have to stick to that, and don't worry about eating McDonald's or whatever, because that is not entertainment in my mind.
Your opinion is actually really good, because I am intending to focus only on the psychological side, so I will exclude the physical side, which is obesity and substance abuse. I'll be focusing only on psychological part. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Amani. Good luck on your research. And I will be calling Liti Shibu. And Liti, she's going to talk about knowledge translation interventions to enhance evidence-based practice in physical therapy, a literature review.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. Sorry for being the last, hopefully not the least. Right? I wouldn't take long. Okay. First of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Ahlia management, in particular Dr. Abdullah Al-Hawaj and Professor Mansoor Ali, and my dear ones. As well, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to all Ahlia family and PhD family members. Thank you all. Right. Today, I asked Dr. Tilal, what should I speak? Should I speak about my paper? He said, give me your story. So I'm going to give you my story. My story is all about knowledge translation intervention in enhancing or promoting or supporting a particular concept called evidence-based practice in the context of physical therapy. So these are the agendas. I'll take you through that. Let me start it with a scenario. You're not well, you go to a doctor. You wouldn't go to a doctor who doesn't have necessary qualifications. You wouldn't go to a doctor who doesn't have necessary experience. You wouldn't go to a facility which doesn't have supporting infrastructure to give you. Why? As a patient, we would expect the best or the optimum patient care. So now, as a clinician, how would the clinician decide to give you the best or optimum care? There was a traditional model of clinical practice wherein the clinician used to take the decision of what care need to be delivered based on intuitions, based on their knowledge which they have accumulated from their education, based on certain practices which is widely accepted in the healthcare. All right? So past 20 years, we have seen something new, totally new. This is called evidence-based practice. That means you have to integrate the three components when you deliver patient care. The three components starts from, number one, what do you know about it? If you're choosing a particular treatment or an intervention, what guides you for that decision? Is it the knowledge which you acquired in the medical school? Or is it your experience, 40 years, 30 years of experience? Or is it the opinion or practices of your colleagues as well, the rest of your team? Second one, the other component is, okay, billions have been spent on clinical research. There are certain practices which are promoted. Certain practices have already been approved as obsolete. All right, so lots of things are happening in research. So what research is saying about the latest evidence regarding your choice? Number three, the king, the patient. I have the right to accept or I have the right to refuse whatever you suggest. So the patient preferences, patient opinion, patient values. Therefore, evidence-based practice integrate the three components of these three components into one to provide the optimum or the best patient care. However, there are claims that evidence-based practice is going to enhance the patient care. It also promotes the continuing professional development of the clinician. It also being considered as one of the core competencies. Okay, of course it has got its own criticism. They say that evidence-based practice heavily depend on quantitative research and ignore a lot of qualitative research, which are opinions and expert opinion, etc., coming from the healthcare practice. It is also shown that a quarter of Americans, of course in the developed countries context, receive interventions which are known to be useless or harmful. All right? So therefore, there are arguments for evidence-based practice and arguments against evidence-based practice. However, most of the professional bodies and the higher research institutions recommend evidence-based practice because of its presumed potential to enhance patient care. Now, if it is good, then why everybody is not following it? There is enough evidence in the literature that adoption and implementation or extent of practicing evidence-based in healthcare, particularly with reference to physiotherapy also, is very less. So what does it mean? It means the research outcomes or research outcomes of the scientific research are not being translated to the patient care. Therefore, there is a gap, which is called as a research practice gap. Why this research practice gap exists? Because there are certain barriers or challenges that hinder this evidence-based practice. Several studies have been done investigating the barriers, and also several researchers have classified these barriers into various levels existing at individual levels, organizational level, cultural level, and various dimensions. There have been efforts to classify. Let me take one example of it. Cognitive barrier, which is awareness, knowledge, and skills about evidence-based practice itself. Why should I integrate the latest research into my practice? Let's go down to the last one. There is a contradiction in the literature which says that all these barriers we have investigated could be perceived. They're not real barriers. Therefore, we need to further look into the barriers of evidence-based practice. Now, a clinical practitioner or a healthcare practitioner at that individual level, they have got huge challenges. Have a look. About 72 new clinical trials are published per day. There is about 11 systematic reviews are published, and there are n number of journals, and there are n number of recommendations. What do I pick? So the volume of research, and where should I look for credible evidence, and how do I evaluate and see that whether this particular research evidence is beneficial to my patient or not? Will I get support from my organization or from my colleagues? Or if I change my practice, which is against the common practice, will I have to face medico-legal issues? Or finally, how do I integrate my knowledge as a clinician and the research evidence and the patient preferences together to get evidence-based practice? Now, the professional bodies and the research-oriented organizations and collaborations have suggested a way forward. They have got an evidence pyramid wherein they're trying to analyze the level of evidences and then from there come out with certain approaches which can facilitate evidence-based practice. For example, you could see that there are systematic reviews being published. This is one of the top evidence you could see. As well, you can see on the top of that, there are clinical practice guidelines. If a specific clinical situation, what best could be followed. However, we do not have clinical practice guidelines for all the scenarios. We do not have clinical prediction rules for all the scenarios. There are many ways and there are many resources, EBP resources, exclusively addressing physical therapy and healthcare researchers. But in order to understand what is to be accepted and what is to reject, it becomes difficult for the healthcare practitioner. So therefore, we're looking at the perspective of the individual practitioner. Now, I hope it's clear. There's a lot of research. and there is clinical practice. There's a gap between them. How can we bridge this gap? So what has been suggested in the literature, in order to bridge the research practice gap, one of the strategy is the knowledge translation strategy. Previously, this was referred as knowledge management, knowledge to action, transfer strategies, etc. Recently, it has been comprehensively looked at as a knowledge translation, under knowledge translation context. Now, the study, the suggestion in the literature is about using knowledge translation to bridge the research practice gap. So within the concept of knowledge translation, we have got certain particular concepts or rather points, which is called as knowledge translation interventions. So there was a lot of studies being done, and one of the group which is very active, it's a collaboration called EPOC, tried to classify the intervention which could be used in the healthcare context to bridge the gap between research and practice. And these are some of the suggested interventions. However, none of these interventions have been proven conclusive about its effectiveness. So lastly, the last point, which is called as multifaceted intervention, which is a combined strategy of using more than one intervention, is the suggested way forward for regarding the effectiveness of interventions. Now, what we know about the KT intervention, there have been several studies conducted, and however, some of them have been investigated. Like, for example, educational meeting seems to have only 6% of effectiveness regarding a clinician uptake of evidence-based practice. After the literature review, what has been found is an active strategy is being recommended compared to a passive dissemination strategy. Multifaceted intervention, which is a combination of different interventions, is being suggested, and comparative effectiveness of different intervention is required to know further about which one of these intervention strategies could be beneficial in enhancing evidence-based practice. Now, the theoretical support for this research, it was interesting to know the knowledge translation interventions have been looked or supported by more than 25 different theories. And there was a lot of theories which could be applied to understand this phenomena further, like very established social cognitive theories, TRA, TPB, and as well, considering EBP as a new concept, Rogers' diffusion of innovation was suggested. There was implementation theories like 5-step model of growth was suggested. Furthermore, the KT theory specifically in healthcare, which was for contribution of the past few years, were suggested. For instance, this was a model which is suggested in 1997 by Logan and Graham, called as Ottawa model of research utilization, which is comprehensively addressing all the components of intervention and rest of the factors. Similarly, the decomposed theory of plant behavior was suggested by many studies to use it as the framework to understand the intervention studies. However, at this stage, I haven't come to a point that which one of the theories would be best suitable. Me and Dr. Tilal is working on a criteria to identify what would be the best suitable in order for me to underpin the underpinning theoretical framework of my study. Now, what is being done? A lot of research is being done in the field. However, experimental studies are suggested in the literature to know the effectiveness of intervention to overcome these barriers. And number two, the evidence which is available regarding the barriers itself is inconclusive. So we need to look into further into the barriers that are hindering or that are not able to, the clinician is not able to promote evidence-based practice. So what we do not know, what intervention strategies can enhance the evidence-based practice of physical therapists, what are the barriers that exist at the level of individual or a practitioner that could be overcome by selected intervention strategy. Therefore, to compare the effectiveness, because we do not know which one is more effective, passive versus multifaceted, because there is argument in the literature that multifaceted is more effective compared to passive. However, there are researchers says that passive is equally effective. And why we are using a knowledge translation intervention? Because this is the suggested strategy to bridge the research practice gap. Why am I using the free online resources, because there are a lot of free resources available that could enhance the evidence-based practice, and this was been suggested in the literature. Attending a conference, traveling and paying a lot of money, if using an online resource is equally good, why should I spend a lot of money on these things? And finally, it is done in the context of physical therapy, and it is an experimental study wherein before and after study, wherein there are two groups of people, control group and intervention group. They would receive these two different things, and we would be analyzing the baseline data and the after data. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Okay, Muhtar, he has a question. There, behind Professor Mansour.
Professor Shalki, this is put there just to give you, this is Namaste.
No, I was just confused. Is it clapping or?
No, it's Namaste. Namaste means, translated, I bow down to the divinity within you. I respect the soul of God which resides within you.
Thank you.
Thank you. No questions, everybody?
Yeah, Muhtar has a question.
Thank you for your presentation. My question is about, don't you think that it is justifiable that knowledge transfer should be slow and not efficient as other fields because it's dealing with the human life? Because to make changes or to apply something that has been approved in labs on the bedside, it is very risky. So that's why you find it more, it's slower in the healthcare than any other field.
I agree with you. There is no other field as important as healthcare when it comes to, like you actually deliver at the point of care. So evidence-based practices, in fact, is trying to bridge that. So, yeah, you have a point.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Yes, Dr. Ahlam.
Thank you, Leti. It was very comprehensive presentation, but you ended with the aims and you finished the story suddenly.
Yeah, because at this stage, I selected one of the theories when there was contradiction within the literature itself, and Dr. Talal told me stay here.
So you didn't start
No,
with your
we are not.
research methodology.
Now we are going back to the theoretical underpinning and then trying to find out a criteria what best would be suitable for the study. So at this stage, we just stayed back.
طيب, okay, in knowledge translation intervention,
Yes.
comparative effectiveness, these are very difficult terminology to measure. How you are going to measure them?
Now, in particularly, in this case, is a before and after. There are
How?
There are two groups of people, from the sample size, you collect the baseline data and then you randomize them into two groups, a control group and an intervention group, and then the intervention group receives the particular intervention which we are suggesting, and then the data is collected at time 2, and then you compare between this whatever primary outcome you are looking at and the secondary outcome. Primary outcome is the extent of practicing EBP.
Thank you. Okay, the gentleman at the back.
Thanks, Larry. I need your help to clarify something for me. I'm a little bit vague on the aim of this. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to utilize knowledge sharing or knowledge exchange or knowledge translation in order to bridge a gap between clinical research and practice of physical therapy. So clinical research on physical therapy and practice in physical therapy. Is that what it is?
Now, when you say research, it's not exclusively for clinical research alone.
Okay.
It's not alone. Like we have an evidence pyramid. If you look at it, this is what is being practiced. So evidence comes from various levels. So, but it's a low-level evidence. For example, the case report or the case series which is published in healthcare is considered to be an evidence, but then it's in a lower level of evidence. And you consider randomized controlled trials, systematic reviews, and meta-analysis on the top of it.
Okay.
So therefore, the research gap doesn't specifically say clinical research. It says the evidence coming from research, generally scientific research.
Okay, all right. If this is the case, you're trying to use theory of behavioral science, TBB or TRA or DTBB. So here I'm trying again to find a difficulty on what are you trying, if this is behavior, these behavioral theories try to understand and predict human behavior. So how is that linked to your study?
Right.
Please, thank you.
The idea here it has been argued in the literature. In order for a clinician to adopt something and practice something, there need to be a change in behavior. So this is the argument in the literature. You need to look at it from a point of view of behavioral change. Unless you know something about it, whether you want to deliver it to the patient or not, it's up to the clinician. So there's a change in. So at the same time, the argument is we have to go beyond that and look at KTI, okay, as a KT framework. So that's why at this stage, I'm not really sure which theory. And we'll be gauging and analyzing it against a criteria and then we select.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Liti. So I would like to close the session now. And I would like just to say, it's been very good, like many people are contributing. So I would like to tell all the students that the symposium doesn't finish today. Please just take phone numbers, email addresses of the people around here you've met today who might give you some input, because your supervisor is a really important person. Supervisor can help you on your research project, on developing it, on getting the right title, but research is not just between you and your supervisor. Make use of the facilities Brunel gives you, join FORI, meet other students and other people who are working in a subject similar to you, and talk to them a lot. All right? That would be my recommendation anyway. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, Mar, for chairing the last session. We'll have lunch now for 1 hour. So I'm asking people to come back by 2:15. So please be here by 2:30. And well, do your best, because I know what happens when you go to lunch. Because what we will have is we'll have the award ceremony for the best paper, and the second best paper, and the best presentation, and the second best presentation after lunch. We kept it last just to ensure that people are here. And I will see you in 45 minutes time. So please be